So in this video, I'm going to be looking at some of the lies and slander that is currently going around about Celeste's family after these David hearings. Now, before I get into it, I just want to let you guys know, okay, I've uploaded the raw notes from day 5 of the hearings to my Patreon on the free section. I'm not charging for this. This isn't something I'm selling. These are on the free section of my Patreon, but I've put them separately from YouTube. There is nothing in there that is wrong or bad. This is just my raw reporting and my raw notes, and some quite cool people on Reddit have actually been transcribing and putting some of these messages together in like a Google Doc over on Reddit, and shout out to them for doing that. Okay, it's very, very interesting. But anyway, separate from that, okay, here is what's going on. So after this, harrowing final day of hearings, we heard some interesting information about what Celeste's family knew about David, and that has led to people completely misquoting, misrepresenting the information that was presented in court. And I was there to hear what was said. So I've been seeing posts like this going around. College Kid, usually quite a good source of news, but basically misrepresenting what was said. It says David and Celeste Reaver's respective parents knew about their relationship. Not true. Not what was said. David attended church with Celeste's family in addition to her parents, not true, giving her permission to travel to London with the singer. So we're seeing a lot of these posts going around, and I think it really is kind of damage control time. And really, I think David's defense team were very smart in that they kept the most damning looking stuff to the very end. They then put things together and put things forward in a very sneaky, crafty way to make it seem like the family knew a lot more about what was going on with David. And now the media is having a field day and not focusing on the fact that David basically completely got the floor wiped with him in these preliminary hearings and is now having to face a full-blown trial. So this is going around. It says LAPD reveals Celeste's family knew about their relationship, that was never said, and signed a child travel consent form allowing her to travel to London with David. That's not entirely true. That's not really what was said in court, and it's a misrepresentation of the facts. Again, LAPD reveals Celeste's family knew about their relationship. That's not what was said. So there's a bunch of stuff going around and a bunch of quite sensational posts going around, particularly in r/Dave Idiots, which I've made it very clear is completely compromised. And I'm not surprised to see r/Dave Idiots kind of celebrating this as a win and deflecting everything towards, Celeste's family as being responsible and saying they should be a child endangerment charge. Well, let me tell you exactly what was said in court, and you'll be able to understand why I think that this is just a horrific campaign to basically end out the preliminary hearing with some information that's been completely misrepresented to make it seem like in the media that it's the family's fault and this bombshell was dropped on the last day. To really deflect from the fact that David got absolutely and utterly royally demolished in the preliminary hearings, was absolutely just torn to pieces by the evidence that made it very clear that it seems that he likely did murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez and dismember her body and was in an illegal relationship with her for years. Those are the allegations, and I would say that the evidence presented in the preliminary hearing made it very, very clear to anybody with a brain that that's likely what happened. But let me tell you exactly what was said and how crafty the prosecution were when it came to kind of framing the parents, and then I'll show you some of what people are saying, which I think is interesting. So basically, okay, David's defense attorney didn't show any hard evidence for a lot of this, just asked the detective questions that were asked in a very smart way, and you got to give respect to Blair Burke and the defense team. They were very smart. See, a lot of the time it's like we heard statements and then we were shown specific evidence, but in this they asked very broad questions in a very smart strategic order to the LAPD detective that was responsible for this case while on the stand, and the order that they asked these questions in made it seem a lot more like the family had an involvement in what was going on. So the first thing they asked in this line of questioning, they said, was David known to Celeste's family? And the detective said yes. Now that's very broad. David being known to Celeste's family, that doesn't mean they approved of the relationship, doesn't mean they knew of the relationship, doesn't mean that they even knew that David was a grown man, right? As we have found out during the during the hearings, that David was a massive liar, and unfortunately, rest in peace to her, but Celeste was a liar too. There was allegations that Celeste had said that her age was 16, 17, 18, but we saw cold, hard evidence that David had at least been informed in a roundabout way from the body cam footage on February the 17th, 2024, that Celeste was 13, all right? Likely 13. That's not even what they said. They said, pretty sure she's 13. And he acknowledged, he said, people are saying she's 13, but she told me she was 18. And bear in mind, this is amid the context of basically like David having Operation Awesome, a plan with his security guard to come and kidnap her in the middle of the night from her family home, with the help of a security guard in the middle of the night, and giving her bags to basically pack all of her belongings so she can move out the family home. Does that sound like a family that's aware of the relationship and supportive of the relationship, that he's having to come with security in the night and sneak her out of her home to move her away, and then within 2-3 days of that happening, the police are knocking on the door informing him that she's 13 and she's hiding somewhere else? Does that sound like the family knew what was going on or approved of what was going on? No. All they said was David's known to Celeste's family. Now, that's nothing new, because we knew that Celeste's father, once she saw the news about David and the remains being found in his car, he contacted the police saying, I think that might be my daughter. Now, that doesn't mean that Celeste hadn't potentially lied to her parents. That doesn't mean that maybe the parents knew about the relationship and they were doing everything in their power to stop it, but Celeste basically was just constantly giving them the runaround, running away, being kidnapped by David and his security, going missing. The police were coming knocking, looking for her numerous times. So that was a massive misrepresentation. The next question, they said, okay, and they phrased this very well. Now, listen very carefully to the exact words that I'm about to say. Blair asked the detective, after the missing persons report, okay, and there were numerous missing persons report. They didn't say which one. They didn't say when. Well, no, they did say when, but they basically just said, after the initial missing persons report, Celeste's parents allowed her to live away from home in May 2024 with her aunt in the same city that David lived in. Now, a lot of people have taken that to say, oh, the detective said yes. Oh, that means that the parents allowed her to go and live with her boyfriend, who was an adult. They approved of they basically sent her off packing. Well, that's not what was said, was it? What was said was, after that missing persons report, so after they have this problem with her constantly running away, they allowed her to go and live with her aunt in the same city, LA County, that David lived in. That doesn't mean anything. All right, that does not mean anything. I could say that they sent her to live in the same city that Blair Burke lived in. Was she responsible? No. All right, anyone that lives in. So she wasn't sent to live with David, and they didn't ask the detective, was she allowed by her parents to go and live with David? Because the answer probably would have been no, and there would have been no evidence to that. And bear in mind, when she asks this, when she says, was David known to Celeste's family, and the detective says yes, they're not showing any proof of this. No proof. When she said, after the missing persons report, was Celeste allowed to go and live away from home with her aunt in the LA County area, in the same city that David lived in, not in David's house, not approved, not allowed, not with express permission to go and live with her adult boyfriend, all right? And they showed no proof. They didn't show proof. They didn't show a permission slip. They didn't show anything to say that she had been allowed to go and live with David, who was an adult, while she was a minor. That's not what was said. So now people are saying, oh, she was sold off. Oh, she was coming back with money. Oh, she was... That's not what was said at all, okay? Now, here's the thing. They did say... And here's where you got to focus on what they didn't say, because if they had better evidence, they would have brought it up. They were bringing up the best stuff they possibly could. So they said David was known to Celeste's family. Yes, we already knew that because Celeste's father called the police and said, I think that's my daughter, when he saw the news of a body found in Singer David's trunk. She asked the detective point blank, aunts and cousins knew about the relationship, right? And the detective said yes. So she didn't say the parents knew about the relationship, did she? She said aunts and cousins knew about the relationship. If the parents knew about the relationship, she would have asked, she would have said point blank, did the parents know about the relationship? Blair did not ask that because there was no evidence to that, and there would be absolutely no proof of that. She asked specifically about aunts and cousins knowing about the relationship. So they said David was known to Celeste's family, aunts and cousins knew about the relationship. Now, okay, here's the thing. Admittedly, yes, that is bad. She was allowed to go and live with the aunt, and the aunt found out about it. I'll keep it real with you. I've got more questions for the aunt than the parents, okay? But again, we're seeing this massive misrepresentation and pointing towards the parents. Now, she went on to ask, David attended church with family, and David would pick up Celeste from the house to take her on dates to the mall. Now, here's the thing. They didn't say David attended church hand in hand with the mother and father. They said David attended church with family, and he would pick up Celeste from the house and go on dates. Now, that is very, very misleading, because they didn't say what family members. They didn't say mum and dad. They didn't say auntie. They didn't say cousin. she could have gone to church one time with her sister and David together. Or Celeste could have gone to church with her whole family and David went separately and gave her a little wink from way over there. We don't know. And it was a very broad and misleading statement, and I think that is now being capitalized on. And the idea that David would pick up Celeste and take her on dates to the mall, they didn't say David would knock on the door with flowers and greet the parents and they would hug him and say, please take our minor daughter to the mall. That's not what was said, right? We know that David would pull up to the house and pick her up because he had Operation Awesome to pull up with his security and kidnap her in the middle of the night. Picking her up from the house to take her to the mall, that could be a kidnapping. Picking her up from the house during the kidnapping without her parents' knowledge could easily apply to that statement. The defense was very smart in the way they asked this. Now, they said that David took Celeste family to Six Flags. Now, we had seen this report it was maybe one of Celeste's cousins or a sister had basically been to Six Flags with David and Celeste, and there was talk of like a Build-A-Bear receipt being found. But again, I made it very clear. The way that it was suggested was, he took members of her family to Six Flags. Well, that doesn't say parents, because if David had taken Celeste's parents and her to Six Flags, they would have asked that and they would have said that. We haven't heard once them say, the relationship was known to the parents, all right? Maybe the aunt knew about it. Maybe the aunt didn't know David's age. Maybe the aunt did know David's age. But again, they were very tricky and crafty about the way they asked these questions and the order they asked them in. They then said, Celeste's adult sister was aware of the relationship. Okay, cool. Sister, you might tell your sister about your illicit relationship, but not your parents. Okay, I'm not saying that's okay. Okay, but the sister could have been lied to of aspects too, or maybe the sister knew everything. And then they said the adult sister went to Vegas with them. And the detective countered that and said, accompanied, going with them isn't a fair characterization. She was in Vegas at the same time as them in a different hotel, went there in a different car, and they met up at some point. That's all we heard. So again, it's like this idea that it's like, the parents sold their daughter to this grown man. Where was that said ever? They didn't even ask the detective if the parents were aware of the relationship. All they said was that they knew they were aware of David. That's it. That's it. She could have said that David was one of her homies. She could have said David's the artist she's the biggest fan of. But at no point was it established that the parents were aware of the relationship. And if proof comes out of that later, I'll happily throw my hands up and say that I've seen the evidence. But again, I'm seeing people running this narrative and trying to rub it in my face like, see, we were right about the parents. No, you weren't. You weren't. I was in the courtroom, and basically this was the defense's finest hour when they asked this series of questions. So after that, they said, Celeste's school friends knew about the relationship in 2024. That didn't really shock me. She was apparently telling people in school, she's got this older boyfriend. She's got a boyfriend called David. That's probably the type of thing you might tell your classmates. Not your parents, but your classmates. And that didn't surprise me. Are we going to arrest these other kids? So they basically went on to say that were they aware of a trip to Houston? Now, this was perhaps the most damning thing, but I'm suspect of this thing, to be honest with you guys. Now, I'm not calling anybody out, and I'm not pointing the finger at anybody specifically, perhaps, maybe, allegedly, in some people's opinion. But, okay. So, all right, what was said in court, and I'm going to hit you with something crazy, okay? I'm going to hit you with something crazy. I'm not connecting the dots. All I'm doing is just going to tell you two separate pieces of information. You're going to have to come to your own conclusion. So, basically, it was claimed in court that this trip to Houston where Celeste was allowed to fly. Well, okay. Let me scratch. Let me reverse up a little bit. They basically said, okay, that Celeste's parents allowed Celeste to go on the trip to London. And the proof of this, and they did show proof of this, they said that they had a notarized permission slip with Celeste's father's name on it that allowed her to go to London, okay? Specifically with David. Now, that was the most damning thing, and that really shocked me. But here's the thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that they knew there was a relationship. In fact, because Blair Burke didn't specifically ask the detective, were the parents aware of the relationship, that makes me think that the parents were not aware of the relationship, and there's no proof of that. Now, aunts and cousins knowing about the relationship, that was confirmed. That was said yes to. But what's interesting is they then said, well, she was allowed to travel internationally with David because there was a notarized permission slip that had her father's name on it. Who's a notary? So all I'm going to do is say, all right, okay, this is going around, all right, when it was David's brother Caleb fully pursuing the music career. Okay, so they're basically saying, what the F, Colleen Dawood? We know Colleen played a huge role in David's career, approving and disapproving of music. Okay, I wonder what Colleen's career has been. Does anyone know? I think I saw an interview where he said she was a teacher, and she's a notary too. Wait, she is? For where I'm from, this is a step above a lawyer and a step below a judge. If so, he even has his mother supporting his every legal doubts. Makes you wonder about the trip to London and whether she was the one who notarized the letter of consent. This was 3 months ago, okay? And it said, yes, David said himself at the 2:30 mark, my mum was a teacher, but she doesn't do that anymore. She was a notary now. Oh, let's check. Tell you what, that's really interesting. I would love to see proof of that. Let me see. Let's see. Oh, the video's been privated, not removed. Privated. Somebody has specifically privated that video. Oh, that's so bad. It would be a real shame if somebody backed this video up 3 months ago. It was me. It was me. I backed this video up 3 months ago. I've got it. Whoopsie. Whoopsie. Oh, no. Whoopsie. Let's see.
My dad is a litigator for a law firm. My mother was a teacher back in She doesn't do it anymore, but she does notary now.
You know, when your dad's in a
big old grin on his stupid little face, isn't it? Oh, let's play it again.
musician.
Because they tried to delete, they tried to cover this up. You can't outfox a fox, people. Okay, David, you cooked. Colleen. I'm not saying that she definitely notarized it. You know, I'm just pointing out that there was a comment. Okay, there was a comment, all right? That was a comment I'm going to show you in a minute. But some people are basically saying, say it with me. Notarized permission to travel doesn't mean license to kill. Poor judgment, yes. All right. But I can't quite reconcile Operation Awesome and a missing poster with this, all right? Why would they need Operation Awesome if the parents were allowing it? But anyway, this is a sort of a separate thing that I'm going into later. This was a different thing that I was looking at earlier, but I wanted to just refer to that comment of the notarized permission slip, basically. But I think it was this one, all right? Basically, look, that's what they say. Oh, sorry, I've been looking for this clip for a while. This was it. So yeah, basically, look, I'm not saying it. All I'm saying is that other people on Reddit months ago, they pointed out that she's a notary. And it does make you wonder whether she was the one who notarized the letter of consent. It makes me wonder if we can really believe that the parents actually did, well, not even the parents, but Celeste's father, whose name was on this. It just makes you wonder, like, I'm not even going to say it, but yeah. You know, he said it himself in this video that's been conveniently removed and privated, right? But luckily I backed it up. But yeah, let's just hear it again.
Not at all. My dad is a litigator for a law firm. My mother was a teacher back in She doesn't do it anymore, but she does notary now.
Oh, she does notary now. I just want to, like, zero in on his stupid face as he said that. Just smug as hell, right? She does notary now. She does notary now, yeah? Your mum, Colleen. What? Colleen, who met Celeste, does notary.
You know, when your dad's an attorney, your mom's a teacher, I feel like the last thing you'd want to do is have a kid that's a musician.
Dude, it was the craziest thing because it wasn't even supposed to happen.
I think there would be something that would be worse than your kid being a musician, and he's teaching them firsthand. It can be much worse. It can be much worse. But anyway, okay, it's just really interesting, isn't it? It's just really interesting. And that's interesting too. I think that's also quite interesting. But anyway, all right, I know they're going to be seething. Colleen's going to be punching the air right now, but it is what it is, okay? I personally just think the misdirection towards the family are just outrageous. So anyway, from there, we kind of saw the defense kind of go down a different line and basically say, oh, there were pictures of Celeste and David online that were publicly available, so, you know, it must have been all good. And the detective said, I can't verify any of those photos. I've not seen those photos. I've not seen the devices that they've come from. I can't verify them, so we've not brought them forward. Now, this bit was interesting because basically David's lawyers threw everyone under the bus at this last moment. And again, bear in mind, they didn't ask, did Celeste's parents know about the relationship? Because I don't think they did. Because if they did, Blair Burke would have asked, because that would have been brilliant. All right. But what was done was some very convenient asking of other questions in an interesting sequence, hitting on that notary as the headline. All right. It was notarized and her father's name was on it. Okay. All right. So the last thing they said was that David's management team went with David to Coachella. And they basically said David's people, Okay. I'm misreading something there, but basically, okay, they say that David's management team went with David to Coachella. Now, I didn't write this down. In my memory, I thought they said that Celeste went to Coachella, but I don't think that was the case, because I didn't write that down. I must have misremembered that. But they then basically went on to say, man, should I do it? Should I drop the bomb on them? They went on to say, oh, people within David's team, people that knew David professionally, went out with David and Celeste socially. You know what? I'm gonna do it, and I want to make it clear that this was said in a public hearing. This isn't an invasion of somebody's privacy. This was reported in a public hearing. This will be available in the transcripts. But man, this is a hot one. I don't know if I should do this. This is naughty. This is a little bit naughty. I'm not suggesting that. Should I do it? It's here in my notes. I'll tell you what. I'm going to show you something. Someone else has posted it, so I'm gonna. Fuck it. I'm just gonna show it. I'm sorry, buddy, but Grey Toomey, you've produced. You produced some of my favorite songs. Like this song, "At My Purest" with Gunner is hard as hell. But brother, you are in big trouble. Okay, Grey Toomey is an American record producer and composer currently based in Los Angeles, working at Universal Music Group. He's worked with some of the music industry's biggest artists like Offset, Gunner, Turbo, Lil Tecca, Tory Lanez. He's also known for his cinematic and soundtrack work with David, for whom he produced "Feel It" for the movie adaptation of the comic Invincible, as well as the song "Remember Me" for the popular mobile game League of Legends. Grey Toomey, you allegedly went out socially with David and Celeste together. All right. Blair Burke just threw you under the bus. I'm sorry. What the fuck? Grey Toomey, here you are at the house where David streamed with Celeste. What were you doing? What were you doing out socially? People saying, wondering how much Grey Toomey knew about Celeste, seeing as he frequently went over to 804 to record music. Grey Toomey, brother. If you want to do an interview and break it down and get this off your chest and just be transparent, I'd be more than willing to interview you, give you the benefit of the doubt, and let you speak your piece. But I'm concerned. So yeah, I'm gonna have to blur that, aren't I? We have to blur that. People are saying, was he the guy? Oh no, someone else. Yeah. Spicy one, that one. So anyway, look, that is everything that there was to say about Celeste's family. I personally think that there has been a campaign to misrepresent what was said, to make them look worse, to make it look like they were complicit. And I'll show you some of the insane reporting that's kind of come off the back of that. Just bear in mind, there was no suggestion that the parents knew of the relationship. Again, it wasn't like the parents completely just were completely loving David and welcomed them into the home. That's not what was said, all right? An aunt and a cousin apparently knew about the relationship. A cousin or a sister had spent time with David, and Celeste's father's name was on a notarized document that allowed her to fly out of the country. Now, Davidiots, r/Davidiots, which is a fully compromised subreddit, okay, there's a lot of David support suspiciously found on here. And again, they're pointing the finger, as they have done for months, at Celeste's family, and they're basically kind of focusing on certain aspects of this, all right? So it says the court details about Celeste's parents are horrifying, because I thought the horrifying stuff was the horrific autopsy photos that still haunt me, the garage full of blood, all the alleged illegal videos and photos of him and this minor doing illegal stuff. But no, they're horrified by the details about Celeste's parents, which I just told you. As I've been following the case, I've realized Celeste's parents and even David's family need to face charges as well. Hearing what's come out from the preliminary hearing, I'm truly disgusted at the lack of accountability the adults, especially Celeste's parents, have. First, Celeste's parents claim that they had no contact with David. Not once did Blair Burke ask if the parents had had any contact with David. I hadn't seen any proof to suggest that the parents had no contact with David. Said the LAPD admitted in court that David went to church with Celeste and her family, not the parents. Just could have been any member of family. And they lumped that in with saying, did David attend church with members of Celeste's family? Could have been one time with the sister, could have been at the same church in the same room, all right? Celeste's sister went with them to a show in Vegas, didn't go with them, was in Vegas at the same time, traveled in a different vehicle, stayed at a different hotel. And worst of all, her parents signed a notarized consent form. Notarized by who? Allowing 14-year-old Celeste to fly to London for a week with that monster. It was actually 2 weeks. Anyway, what good parents allows their child to fly off to London for a week with a PDF? They didn't even know that she was in a relationship with this guy, let alone that he was a PDF, right? They might have been lied to about his age. They might have been lied to about the circumstances of them going on that trip. We didn't have any more questions from Blair Burke about what the parents knew about the circumstances of that trip. Report her missing 3 times, not once or twice, but 3 times. I'm not sure if her parents were aware about the terminations at the time they were occurring, but if they did, there was no proof. And you know what? If the parents were aware of those things, I think Blair Burke would have brought it up because it would have made David look good. She didn't, because I don't think it fucking happened. And from what I'm hearing, she went to have those terminations on her own. Not even, David didn't even go with him, the coward. But if they did something, how could you let that happen? If they knew, well, they didn't, and there's no proof of it. Not sure if they did or if any of that's been confirmed to their knowledge. No. I know the defense is trying to shift the blame onto Celeste, even though she was a child and couldn't legally consent to anything, but her parents just abandoned their duty of care. I don't think so. I think they reported her missing, and when Operation Awesome was going down, they sent the police around there to try and stop David, and allegedly they'd been locking her in a room so she couldn't keep running away. I also want to add, I'm not 100% sure if this is confirmed and all, but it's alleged that when the news came out they found Celeste in the Tesla, her father called David and asked if it was his daughter. That wasn't brought up, and no, that's not what happened. Basically, from what I understand, I think that there was actually a conversation between Celeste's sister or brother and the father, who can't speak English, and then basically a conversation was facilitated between Celeste's younger siblings and the father and the police to say that I think that well might be my daughter in the car. We didn't see any proof presented that the father had called David. Now, if that's been kind of inferred to ask if it was his daughter, but I don't think that's true. I think he basically got in touch with the detectives and heard all this stuff. So her parents failed her. Her parents, what about Dave? This is the thing. She was a beautiful young soul who deserves so much more and better. This is a psyop, okay? And so they're sharing kind of, some of this news, basically. But again, this post, this is me saying this post is full of information and completely misrepresents what was said in court. Now that David is going for trial, they're going to have to testify, and I'm here for it unless they crawl back in that hole they were in the whole time after Celeste was found. What a disgusting way to talk about people who have lost their child. But this is the sort of psyop that's going on here, okay? This is the sort of thing that's going on, and these people are saying, unless they crawl back in that hole they were in for the whole time after Celeste found. What hole? They contacted detectives as soon as they saw the news, and they said, try and get to the bottom of what was going on. Keep defending them and giving them hope that they can get some money and show their face so they stay around. They've refused every request to be in a documentary, and I'm sure that they've been offered big money. They've been really, really hurt by this. I've seen them crying in court. It says a lot of the information circulating about the parents supposedly being fully aware of David and Celeste's relationship comes from the defense team. That's not true. Zero evidence, zero suggestion from anything said on the stand, zero statements to support that they were fully aware of the relationship. Did not happen, all right? You could say a cousin, you could say a sister, and you can't say fully aware. Should be taken with a grain of salt because their strategy is to shift blame from David for this relationship onto Celeste's parents and even Celeste herself. Keep in mind, when David's attorney says David attended church with Celeste's family, that could mean many things. She said Celeste's family, not Celeste's parents, which could mean cousins, siblings, aunts, uncles. David could have attended church at the same time with Celeste and some members of her family without Celeste's parents going to church with him while knowing about the relationship. Celeste's sister went to Vegas at the same time as David, but she didn't stay with him and Celeste. It's unclear how much time they spent together. Even if she did know about Celeste and David's relationship, it doesn't mean the parents knew about it. She could have agreed to keep Celeste's older boyfriend a secret. The most damning thing was the defense saying it had Celeste's dad supposedly signed something allowing Celeste to travel to London as a minor, but it's still possible the signature was forged and that Celeste told them that she was traveling with people her age. If only they had a trusted notary that could have anyway, I don't know, but I'm not trying to outright defend Celeste's parents because it's possible they were aware of more than we know and were not good parents, but we shouldn't take what David's defense said at face value. We should wait for definitive proof before assuming the parents were fully aware of their relationship. I also think because their first language isn't English, her parents weren't fully aware of what they were signing either. Ooh, that's a hot take. I hadn't thought of that because they did actually show the signed document in court, but I couldn't see it very closely. I couldn't see what language it was in. I'm not 100% sure, all right? But I'm fairly certain it would have been in English. They can't speak any English. I'm sorry, no offense to them, but like I've seen them in court with an interpreter. I don't think they had a clue what was going on, other than things that were explained to them. It just is what it is, man. That's just what they're dealing with. So if the parents were aware of and okay with Celeste and David's relationship, zero evidence for that, didn't even get asked. Blair didn't even ask. Why would David need to come up with Operation Awesome as a plan to show up in the night with a bodyguard and kidnap Celeste from her home in the middle of the night? In my opinion, the defense is trying to push the idea that everyone knew about Celeste and David's relationship in order to discredit the prosecution's motive for David, in which is that he killed her to avoid being exposed for a PDF. Anyway, you get the point, right? Why would David need to pay a kid to sneak a phone to Celeste? Here's the thing, that was actually never brought forward by either side. I actually would question whether it's true that David snuck a phone to Celeste in that manner. She was given a phone. They said that she was given a phone, but they didn't say by who. So I was a little bit concerned that maybe that might not have been true. Do we even know for a fact they knew David's age if they had met him? I would wager they never met him, because if they'd have met him, I think Blair Burke brought up everything good that she possibly could have for her defense. And if that was the case, she would have brought it up. She brought up whatever she could, because they can't lie. Right? They may know his name's David. They may know he was a famous singer that mostly lives in LA, but they might not actually know things about him beyond that. He's really short after all. He could have lied about being younger. Who knows? There's a lot we don't know. All right? That's how I feel. They got a lifetime of unbearable punishment. There's nothing the state can throw at them that's worse than what they're going through. His parents, though, all right? I'm just curious, if they knew about the relationship and accepted it, why would he have to go through lengths like Operation Awesome when she could have just voluntarily left the house and told her parents where she was going? Exactly. Why would her mother sleep in the same room as her to ensure she stayed home and didn't sneak out? Why would her parents take away her cell phone? Let's use our brains here. Her parents most likely did not know. Or if they did everything they could as an immigrant, non-English speaking, low-income parents. He's a millionaire. I think the way people are falling for an obvious smear campaign is gross. Use your brain. Stop trying to inflict further damage to a family who has paid the ultimate price. Some of the fabrications I've seen here are truly unhinged and disturbing. If you want to talk about parents, include David's mum too. Don't you think it's interesting that posts on here are going around basically just being like, oh, it's so disgusting, look at the parents. This is a ploy by David's defense to make him look less guilty by making her family look more guilty. We're talking about Hispanic family. We could consider they might not have been able to comprehend the thing that the flight confirmation was. We should also consider that going to church amusement parks with the family could mean other children as well. It's called reasonable reliance law. If you allow your child to spend time with an adult and they reassure you nothing inappropriate, sexual, or violent will happen, and something does happen, then you are not legally liable for that as a parent. I never heard of that one. And I know everyone wants to jump down the throat and say, well, that dumb Celeste called David her boyfriend. Obviously, they're going to do stuff. Her parents should have known what was going to happen. That's not how the law works. If the parents told a caseworker or investigator he promised he wouldn't do anything until marriage, then that's reasonable reliance. Parents send their children to school, churches, Boy Scouts alone every day, Boy/Girl Scouts alone every day, and children can get taken advantage of by adults if the parents trusted them. It's not against the law to trust somebody won't harm your child, and if they do harm your child, again, it's dumb that they allowed it to happen. There's no proof of that, but I'm speaking legally. All right. The DA, I doubt the DA is going to bother for a few reasons. Risk to the public, there isn't one. They're not going to snatch kids and funnel them to the predators. I don't think this is relevant. Grieving parents, no punishment will compare. Yeah, they're not going to be charged with anything because they didn't do anything wrong. The defense's job is to divert attention away from the real matter at hand. The fact is she was murdered and groomed. We don't know the full facts. The parents don't speak English. Who knows what Celeste told them? Also, people who groom others can be extremely charming, right? He lied to Celeste. Do you think he would lie to Celeste's parents? Duh, all right? Duh. The daughter's been murdered. They've paid the price for their actions. Celeste paid the price. Their daughter is dead. What more can be done to this family to punish them? It's a highly scrutinized public murder trial. There's no way they can avoid this. David was not her first groomer. A family friend essayed Celeste when she was only 10. Her older brother introduced them as her boyfriend. So yeah, they knew that David wasn't there. This is so horrible that they're basically saying, oh, why would you let an adult gangbanger hang out with your underage daughter? Is this family part of the gang culture? There's no proof of that. Very little is known about everyday life, but what's known is that all of these people, store owners apparently knew. Parents, yeah, they knew. How do you know that? Kids can't keep their mouths shut. That means this person said the whole community knew. If the whole community knew and there was proof of that, David's lawyers would have brought that up, right? They're saying that they want to actually put the family in jail. The text exchange where he sent her $9,000, I think she shared that money with her family. It's just crazy. It's actually crazy. It's horrible. They're saying they don't want to distract. I'm hoping they bring some charges against the family. This is so mean. Especially when they see how pissed the public is. What public? This is a psyop. The fact that their daughter died is horrible, but they deserve legal punishment for numerous things they're reporting here. She's the victim here, not them. She's the one who lost her life when they were knowingly providing her to a PDF and neglect her. Zero proof of that. Knowingly, if that was true, Blair Burke would have brought it up. I've literally been in this girl's shoes with parents who knowingly subjected me to abuse. It's no different to perpetrating the abuse themselves. Let's say if a PDF father takes his child to go share with it. I'm not even going to get into that, but this is nonsense. Interesting try. What a name. What a name. Loads of accounts that were started February 2025. I've seen a few of these accounts. We'll get into that in another video anyway. But they're saying, how will Jesus and Mercedes be judged by the general public? Now a lot of more things. This is David Yates as well. Now that a lot more things have come into light, do you think they'll be blamed as much as David and his parents, or is the situation not as black and white as it's made out? Do you feel there was more to their actions than being revealed? I keep thinking about how they initially lied about ever meeting David, just to find out they gave notarized permission for her to travel alone with him. They never lied because they never met him, because if they met him, that would have been brought up. A neighbor also claimed way back her family knew the entire time because this neighbor met David when she visited Celeste in Lake Elsinore. Then there's the government. So this is the thing, all right? And I think that this was a genius psyop by David's defense team. Just so happened that the day before the 5th day of the hearing, when all of this was coming out, that a random person posted a notes page to Reddit talking about, oh, I was one of Celeste's neighbors and everybody knew everything and I saw them all together. Well, if that's the case, why didn't that come up? Why didn't Blair Burke bring up that everybody in the community knew? Because it's not fucking true. There's no proof of it. If there was proof of it, they would have brought it up. I guarantee they would have brought it up. Okay? And then there's the government assistance allegations. Like, this is so gross. And again, it's like, lied about they never met David. If they met David, it would have been brought up, I guarantee you. Right? And then notarized permission. Notarized by who? So far, many people are not following the case, have sympathized with the family, but it turns out they allowed this relationship. Zero proof of that. It's a psyop. Celeste was 12, 13, getting permission from them to fly from London to London and Texas to be with this grown man. Of course, at the end of the day, David and only David killed her. But how was a 13-year-old allowed to leave the house at 9 p.m. in an Uber on a random night? Why was she allowed to spend weeks away at a time while missing school? Well, if you actually were there and you listened, you'll know that David sent an Uber to a different address down the street. So, not true, and wasn't allowed. If she was allowed to leave her house in an Uber and there was proof and they could have brought something up to say the parents let her go and get an Uber in the middle of the night, they would have brought that up. They set the precedent for the amount of freedom their child had, and I do sadly think that led her on a path to an early grave. It's the parents' fault. Oh, it's the parents' fault. I think it will go badly for them. The defense is going to focus on the fact they knew. No proof of that. So the neglect will be front and center since it's key to the defense strategy. I can see them getting devoured on the stand by the defense, which sucks because they kind of deserve it. And it's only going to happen to make David look less guilty. Yeah, it's going to take the focus off his depraved behavior, which is a shame. The trial should be about what a piece of shit he is. They're not going to call the victim's family to stand. I believe the judge actually said, or it was stated that they weren't planning to be called as party witnesses to this. The judge is not going to allow a PDF murderer's defense team to grill the victim's grieving family or to try and pass blame on them. All they'll do is break down on the stand uncontrollably, claim they don't understand English well enough to answer the questions. This is never going to happen, all right? Both parents would get... This will never happen. This is nonsense. You guys don't have a clue what's going on. Did their family lawyer speak out for them since it's been public that they knew David? I can't find anything. He spoke out afterwards and said it was a whole bunch of lies that were told in that courtroom, and he was shocked and offended. I think people should wait until the case concludes to make up their mind. No, let's not do that. It's looking pretty damning as it is right now. Something tells me it'll only get worse, but you do have a point. Something feels a little off. The timeline contradicting the text. We're told her parents were okay with it. No, we weren't. But then you have text where David and Celeste are discussing a staged kidnapping and David's frustration at the police reports and missing persons poster. Why would they need to do that if the parents were fine with it? Someone said the parents only reported her to the police because the school complained. If that was true, Blair would have brought it up, didn't mention it once. But the family was sharing missing persons posters online and David was paying Celeste's friends to lie to the parents. Seems there's a lot missing here. It could be possible the parents were aware of the relationship, but it didn't mean they were okay with her running off to live with him. Zero proof. Both these things can be true, but you have no proof. They probably wanted her to stay in school, but didn't take enough preventative measures to keep her away from him. No proof of that. And yeah, in another thread, it was discussed they allegedly had to report her missing to get the courts off her back. Of their back since she was missing school so much. I could see them sending out posters and doing whatever to avoid legal trouble. Maybe they were scared. No proof of that. Blair would have brought it up. Putting out posters doesn't avoid legal trouble. They could have faked the signatures Celeste's mum sleeping in her room to keep an eye on her tells me she was trying. I'm sure both of her parents already feel like they could have done more, but maybe they did all they could. I have a friend who was with an adult when she was a teen. The parents did everything to keep them apart. My friend's dad was a cop, and even with that knowledge, they struggled to stop their daughter sneaking out and lying about where she was to see the guy. Luckily, my friend got away from him in the end, but she had to make that decision to stop rebelling. It's awful, but the reality is that child predators are very calculated. They know how to manipulate a child. It's not fair to judge the parents when we don't know the facts. They will be judged forever, all right? I think it's a witch hunt now is going to take away blame from David, and if the defense knows of that, they'll use it heavily. It needs to be shown what a monster he is, all right? So anyway, you get the gist. I refuse to judge these people until actual evidence came out. I don't regret that, but we should not make assumptions and decide things without any factual information. But that evidence is out there now. They're serious pieces of crap. No, the evidence isn't out there. No evidence was shown. Even for the conversations that siblings and cousins known, they showed no evidence. All they showed was one piece of paper that was so small you couldn't read it. You couldn't even see what language it was in, and they said it was notarized. Who notarized it? I will judge them all day, every day now. Why? You haven't seen any of the evidence. They're garbage parents and liars too. I hope the public has a witch hunt. I have no pity left for these people. And I don't even think... Colleen, is that you? I don't even think they belong there at the trial. I'm sure it's just about money and they're going to try and make it off their... Why did they turn down every documentary offer? Their character is definitely exposed. No sympathy, only for the little girl. Interesting trial. Oh, same guy from the last... Oh, okay. You basically summed it up. They are now OP. This is a psyop. This is a psyop, all right? And honestly, I'm not buying it. You basically summed it up well. My exact thoughts. At first, I thought their biggest failure was allowing their daughter to have unrestricted freedom, but to learn they knew about David's presence in her life, no proof of that, and then signed off for her to leave the country with him. There are no words. It's inexcusable. It can't be rationalized, justified. What if the signature was a forgery and someone notarized it when they shouldn't have? That might rationalize it, right? If it was a fraud. She was a child. I saw a post where they said Celeste's family should receive royalties from David's music from here on out. I thought absolutely not. Colleen, is that you? Is that you? I don't know who it should go to, but not his family or hers. These adults were all complicit. Her parents did have a role ending up in the clutches of a predator. That's just the truth. Downvote. There still has been no evidence that either of the parents met or interacted with David. There was nothing. They didn't even ask if they knew about the relationship. The defense stating David was in the presence of Celeste's family doesn't equate to parents handing her over. They never said David was in the presence of the parents, ever. Taking her cousin to Build-A-Bear and her sister to Six Flags. They didn't mention Build-A-Bear, they just said Six Flags. The text thread from the neighbor has no source, was shared in the subreddit the day before the defense tried to shift blame on Celeste's parents. This comment is quite smart. I rate this person. It doesn't implicate them factually. It doesn't benefit Celeste or the prosecution to turn defense away from David. Doesn't work. All right. I do understand where you're coming from, but I disagree. They did pretty much hand her over to a grown man when they provided a notarized document for her to travel her with. See, you guys are all relying on the notary, right? Who notarized it? It doesn't change the fact if they never met him or not. Point is they still knew him and they didn't. I don't know. Of course they didn't want their child to be murdered or expect this, but as for everything else, like essay her, that could have been prevented. Now, we all want David to be punished to the highest degree. Make no doubt about it, but it's important for it not to be ignored how it got to this point. The point where this monster had access to a child on this level, and I don't blame anyone for being upset and criticizing the parents. The people that are guilty in some capacity, big or small, should be held accountable. Interesting, right? The travel document is insane. I believe there was neglect and awful decision. It's just a psyop, right? This person just so happens to have all this unlimited time on their hand to write paragraph after paragraph to everything anyone says and support them, right? I hope this is a cautionary lesson to families out there. Do you think they'll be blamed as much? It's an incredibly insensitive thing to start your post. See, because it's a psyop. You do realize David is the one that effing stabbed Celeste to death and murdered her. They won't be blamed as much as the literal murderer, regardless of the relationship. Sorry, but sensitivity for them went out the window when it came out they allowed the child to be in the clutches of the PDF demon all over London, LA, and Texas. It's a reach, all right? Regardless of how messed up the family was, no one deserves this. Terminations at her age is so sad. The whole thing's triggering. To pull the "we can't have kids till we're married because I'm traditional" card, but you're out here R-wording a kid yourself. Celeste was too young to understand it for what it was. Him getting her to agree to having the A words and biding his time. There's not a place deep enough in hell. So it's interesting, right? They're kind of going at him a little bit. Strange post. They've been judged since the beginning, but now people have actually got confirmation, and those who had sympathy have stopped supporting with them. From what I read, the mother was beating her up. Never, ever seen anything to say that. Ex-boyfriends claim. They let her roam free whenever, even driving an Uber in a grown man's car for 2 hours. No proof that was allowed. right? No proof that was allowed. She was supposed to be a normal 13-year-old school, but used her as a ticket for money. No proof of that. No proof the parents received money. That's not what you do to your daughter. You don't know what's happening to her with the A words, R words, and abuse. Where were they during those 6 months where she was in his trunk? Were they looking for her? I believe they called the police numerous times. This just really hurts my feelings. So some people are saying sensationalism in a murder case. It says, turns out court testimony in the LA Times did a better job than investigating than the self-proclaimed investigator who confidently claimed Esmeralda went to Knott's Berry Farm instead of Six Flags. I don't really understand the point of this. It says, we knew he knows little, same with 804, which got same with knowing that they went to Vegas until Reddit told him. I don't know what the context of this is. I don't know. Are they going at me or someone else? Until someone reneged and tipped him off from Reddit. Not knowing there was another underage victim until someone renegated and tipped him off from Reddit. It's the not giving credit where it's due that gets me. At least with TLR, he'll give credit and investigate himself to see what he's saying, right? How YouTube panders to SF. Oh, it was SF related. Okay, so I guess SF denied that. To be honest, I'm not really trying to do a SF takedown in this. That's a whole separate story, right? Sensationalism. So yeah. Either way, what was it doing at his house? That requires an explanation. But would frequently be, okay. Anyway, so this is a defense post. I'll read you a defense post and I'll wrap it up because I've been waffling for a while. But to stop blaming the family or parents. They took away her phone to protect her, so David paid her classmates to give her a secret phone. The mum slept in the same bedroom as her to prevent her from running away. David had something called Operation Awesome, where he went with a paid security guard to take her from her home in the middle of the night, and even offered his security to stalk the side of her property in the middle of the night to help her move her bags. The PDF had millions of dollars to manipulate this girl from a poor background, and everyone wants to blame the family. Of course, with hindsight, things could have been handled different, but I believe they tried their best and only wanted the best for her. And to all the people saying he went to church or amusement parks with them, all that was said was that he attended these things with at least one family member in attendance. Doesn't mean the entire family was embracing him with open arms, going to church every Sunday in the same car. Could mean he just attended and was sitting in the back praying on Celeste like the creep he is. We simply don't know. It could be slick wording from his $1 million defense lawyer. If they were so accepting like some people might think, why would he need to abduct her in the middle of the night? Please have grace for the family. They're the ones hurt by this situation. I hope Celeste is in a better place. The most damning evidence that the parents is the notarized permission. So look, I'm going to wrap it up there. I think it's wrong to blame the family, and I just don't think it's cool. I'll give you guys some more info when I've got it, but for now, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you. Bye.